guys, so it's me, Nicolette Mashile. I'm literally out of the bathtub because I want to tell you guys a story. So I'm seeing on Twitter, people are debating an old debate, an old conversation that is actually quite silly to be having, but it's fine, I'm gonna indulge them because I wanna actually make a comment on this thing, right? Remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you're looking for financial advice, please speak to somebody who is certified and registered with the FSCA. So on Twitter, they are debating this budget for a child, right? Some people have put out their budgets of how much they budget for their kid, and it's in the ranges of grocery 3,000, school fees 2,000, piano lessons 500, swimming lessons 500, transport 5,000, whatever, medical aid's got its own price. And people are saying, why would you take a kid to a school with 2,000 rand? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? And it reminds me of actually a very interesting story. And it was a story that I was told by a pastor who is in the education space in KwaZulu-Natal. And he was saying it's quite funny that in KwaZulu-Natal, there's Pine Town, and then there's another suburb or something like that. And he was talking about how if you go in the mornings and you just sit outside, park your car, and observe what's actually happening, you will be very confused. At the very low and maybe middle income schools is where you will see the most amazing cars, right? Like luxury cars and all sorts of cars. And then when you go to the private schools, you will see very modest looking cars. And he was talking about how it's so confusing that a lot of parents in this country would rather pay 14,000, 15,000 rand per month on a car installment, add in another 2,000 rand for insurance, but will complain about paying 5,000 rand every single month for their child's school fees. And the thing is, yes, in as much as it makes sense what he's saying, right, it is a conversation that we should be having. People then come out and debate and say, yeah, education in South Africa is expensive, story. Yeah, so are cars. Let's not pretend. It's what you are choosing to invest in that is important, right? But that's a conversation for another day. What is really fascinating to me is that we want to prescribe to people how they should live their life. First and foremost, your bank balance and my bank balance are not the same. So your kid could go to Michael House and mine needs to go to Hoërskool Rob Ferreira. That's just how it happens, right? That's number one. Number two, your sentiment on quality education is not the same as mine. I might hold it very highly that my kids need to go to the most perfect schools, where they're going to have access, where they're going to be like 10 in a class versus 40 in a class, where the teacher's going to give them personal, individual, whatever attention. And granted, you can come and say, but yeah, I went to Mgundunduze school and I came out fine. I'm a successful entrepreneur. I've got a successful job. All of us, stop, okay? Because in as much as you say that, I can also say the other thing and say, I went to the most poshest private schools and this is how I came out, So I think that we need to stop this thing where we try to prescribe to people how much money they should be spending on their kids. I mean, I personally love children, but a lot of people who know me know, I feel that I am not financially ready for a child because I'm afraid that I might not be able to give my child what they need. And in actual fact, let me tell you guys a story. Right? So when my sister and I were growing up, at age 8, she was 10, we were taken to Nelspruit Primary School. And we ended up living in a flat. My dad lived with us when he was around. But basically, Bridget and I lived together, right? And we went to this, it was an English school, but in Mpumalanga, generally the government schools are a hybrid of government and private, and they run very well, right? So we did go to government schools, by the way, with my posh English. I did go to a government school, and you could hear it sometimes when I say pharmaceuticals or when I say capability, because I don't say what? Capability. I say capability. That's when you know I went to a government school, right? Anyway, so my dad took us to this English school, English medium school that was operated like a private school. Nelspruit Primary was one of the most perfect schools in Mpumalanga. And they used to have this thing called athletics, and there were houses, right? So there was Solomon, there was Hall, there was Fitzpatrick, and I forgot the last one. Anyway, you had to buy a shirt. So what they did is they would put us all in different houses for inter-house purposes, and you would participate in your house, right? And sorry guys, my mic fell. I was in Hall and I think my sister was in Solomon, right? And funny enough, so you had to buy the kit because you had to either buy it as a supporter or as an athlete of the house. And my dad just refused, flat out. He was like, I bought you guys school uniform. So you will run either in your tunic, you better tuck it into your panty, and you better run. And that was just like how my dad was. He refused flatly to do any of the extra things at the school. And let me tell you, my sister and I stood out half of the time. You know, we were like those kids who looked like they ended up in that school because of a sponsorship or because somebody was doing us a favor. And some of those things, you know, we take them for granted, but they can become really damaging because you do get imposter syndrome from those kids. But I realized something the other day. I realized when my dad turned 60, we bought him a car for his birthday. And he was, I mean, this was the first time I saw my dad emotional. I mean, he was turning 60. This was the first time I saw my dad emotional. And he said something in his speech when he was saying thank you. He said for years, he couldn't buy himself a new car. For years, he had to wear like, not tailored, is it untailored? Whatever. See, public school coming back. Suits, because he couldn't buy new amahembe, like shirts, inside shirts for him because he was sacrificing to put us through these good schools. So sometimes people come on the timeline on social media or wherever it is and they say to people, yeah, you guys are being classist by telling us that you're paying 2,000 Rand per month for your child's school fees or you're paying 3,000 Rand for a domestic, a nanny, and. No, guys, so you don't know people's pockets, you don't know people's decision making. Sometimes people make those decisions because they are making financial sacrifices so that their children can have a better life. But let's talk about that better life. The thing is, we like to pretend like networks don't matter. And the reality is that they matter, my friend. They matter, okay? Having the access to pick up the phone and call the CEO of Discovery and say, my son and your son played rugby together. He is about to graduate and become a CA. Can you hook him up with something? And the CEO is like, sure. That is networking. That is putting your child in the right spaces. That's affording them an opportunity. Does it give them a guarantee? Absolutely not. But does it sway the chances? Absolutely yes. Is it only fair that you give your child a chance? Absolutely. Guys, let's not pretend. Let's not pretend. If you've got the means, you do. You do because you made a decision to bring this person that is going to be financially dependent on you for such a long time. Do you know for me, how sad it is that I've got a grandmother, and by the time I was a grown up, my grandmother was still having to dish up food for her sons who just never made it out of the system because they were never also given an opportunity to go out and thrive or have a favor that they could pick up the phone and call the CEO of SPAR and say, my son needs a packing job or anything, you know? So guys, no, my friends, let's not pretend. Sometimes it's about being in the right spaces. Sometimes it's about being able to pick up the phone and call a Sisa Ngebulana and say, my daughter, you and I, our children are in the same school, or you and I were in the same school, and my kids now are, you know, our kids play netball together, and my daughter wants to be a real estate agent or a property developer. Can you help them out? Guys, networking is so important. You're hollering, but you're hollering outside the club, but you can't even get in because of these little decisions that we are making to say, hey, we mustn't pay. If you can, you do. You pay. You make sure, guys, come on. Honestly speaking, yes, it's all good and well to say, yeah, but education is expensive. Children do not need to be spoiled. You are a bad parent if you think that money spoils children. Money does not spoil children. How you use the money is how you end up spoiling children. Making the right financial decisions for your child is not spoiling them. Anything else makes you a bad parent. And I'm not even a parent yet, and I can tell you that right now. Please. And in any case, you know, the funny thing that a lot of people don't seem to also understand is sometimes you find that the parents that do try and put their kids in really good schools and give them, you know, like make them sure they're safe, are the same parents that don't buy their kids labels. They don't buy them branded clothes. They don't buy them, you know, expensive cell phones and all those things. The parents that don't put their kids in the expensive schools will have a kid wearing Cortez from head to toe, Nike from head to toe, Reebok from head to toe. And then you're like, what is this? Put the money in school. Put the money in some piano lessons. Do you know who you meet in the music class? Come on, man. Stop it. Aha.